Hello and welcome to Saints Live. I'm Kenzie Benali.
And I'm Steve Forbes.
Well, the final day of the season is here, and the Saints have travelled to the King Power Stadium to take on Leicester. Not a lot at stake in this one, but still an opportunity to finish the season on a high. And with us to build up to kick-off is former Saints captain Dean Hammond and a man who covered Southampton for nearly 20 years for the Southern Daily Echo, Adam Leach. Adam, we haven't seen you in a while. It's great to have you back. How are you doing?
Thanks, Kenzie. Yeah, it's great to be back. Great to see everybody again. I've been away on my travels with Super League Triathlon, just back from Singapore a week or so ago, but had to get in for the last game of the season, obviously. So, yeah, nice to be back again.
Oh, it's lovely to have you here. And Dean, always great to see you too. Last game of the season, it's flown by, hasn't it?
It really has. I was just about to say how fast the season's gone, and it never surprises me. The last day of the season, it's boiling hot. It always seems to happen. So I feel for players in that respect. But no, like you say, it's gone really, really quick, and it's been a brilliant show, and looking forward to the last game of the season.
Yeah, it's great to see you both as well. Well, before we do go any further into today's match in the men's game, we have to mention our women's team who secured promotion yesterday. Sophia Farrow's goal in the first half turned out to be the winner for Southampton's women. Wolves had their captain sent off as well in the first half, but Saints couldn't add to their only goal, but it didn't matter. It was enough to claim victory and secure promotion to the Women's Championship for next season. So a massive congratulations to Marianne and everyone involved in our women's setup.
Oh, what a special moment that was. We were watching on with pride. As you say, huge congratulations to the Southampton women. But shifting the focus back on to the match today then, some early team news, much the same as we know already really. Tino Livramento, Roman Perro and Fraser Forster are all out. Everyone else, as far as we're aware, are available. So Dean, with that in mind, how do you see Saints lining up to take on Leicester today?
Really not sure, Kenzie, if I'm honest. I think the shape will be interesting. I think that's one consideration. The fullback positions, like you've just mentioned, again, will be another consideration. Kyle Walker-Peters is obviously available. Will Salisu maybe move into the left-hand side as a left-back? Will they play three centre-halves? And maybe Nathan Teller or Nathan Redmond will continue in that fullback position. But it'd be interesting as well. I think today could be a really good indicator of what the approach may be for next season. I think that's what the manager may look at. Players that may be here, players that may be not. Again, I mentioned the shape and maybe the approach that the manager wants to take next year and what he's visualising and thinking of doing for next season collectively and individually. So they're playing against a good Leicester team who have been a little bit inconsistent this year, but have found some form of late. But it'll be really, really good to finish on a high with 3 points and a really good performance and seeing Southampton playing that way that we love to watch them play, that exciting manner, really aggressive with and without the ball. And I think the team selection will replicate that, if I'm honest. I think they'll go back to having two strikers up front. I think Shay Adams and maybe Adam Armstrong coming back in, trying to create that relationship, because I think that could be really, really effective. And then it'll be, like I say, the fullback position. That will be the interest. And I think that will dictate the shape today. So, yeah, looking forward to see what Ralph picks and looking forward to seeing an exciting, aggressive Southampton play today.
Adam, I'm sure you've been watching from afar in recent weeks at maybe some surprise choices in the lineup at times, but do you expect any changes today?
Yeah, I would, Steve. I agree with Dean. It's a slightly difficult one to call in terms of A, the shape, and B, around the personnel. I think normally you'd get to this stage of the season where, as Dean just kind of hinted at, and you go, okay, let's have a good look for next season. Let's use this game. Kind of, we're away from home last day. We're safe. Kind of doesn't matter. But I feel like it kind of does matter a little bit to Ralph in the context of the season. It won't. There's nothing resting on this, but it's been such a poor run that Saints have had. Ralph is starting to come under pressure from certain sections of the fans as well. I don't think you can afford to just kind of have a complete experiment and write this off. I think Saints need to try and finish well today. They need to try and just pick up a little bit of confidence, a little bit of motivation just to get into the summer. I think just the recent weeks and months of limping towards the end of the season have been a little bit draining, I think, for everybody involved, and obviously especially the fans, I think, who have got quite frustrated, understandably, with what they've seen. So I think Ralph needs to play a strong team. I'd like to see him go back to what I consider to be the best formation, which is the 4-2-2-2. I think that's the best way they play. I'd like to see Oriel back in. I'd like to see Stu Armstrong playing and Che Adams all playing as well. So for me, there would be quite a few changes. But I think, as we've said, and as you just pointed out, Steve, it's quite hard to second guess Ralph at the moment. There are some on paper unusual looking decisions being made, but I think however he looks at it, he should go with his strongest team today. It shouldn't be experimental just because it's the last day of the season. Saints needs to try and give the fans a little something back before the end of the season, and end this season on, or at least end it on a high at Leicester, rather than just seeing it whimper out any further.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, that team news is coming your way in under 10 minutes time now. But for now, we are going to talk about the transfer window, which will, of course, be open soon. So fans will, I'm sure, be watching with interest to see what Saints do. And Ralph Hasenhüttl spoke about that in his recent press conference.
Yeah, when you want to change this team, then you have to bring players in. They are better than the players we have. I don't have to tell you how this looks like on the market. But otherwise, you don't need to change the team. So when you want to get better, you need to have players that are better than ours, or more potential to get better when they are with us. So both ways are doable. Fact is, like every season, a lot of work to do. Next season doesn't get easier. We are, again, part of the Premier League next season, and it will be, again, a very tough job to stay there.
Ralph talking about the upcoming transfer window there. Now, Dean, looking at potential incomings, what are the priority areas that you'd say that Southampton need to recruit in?
Well, I think it's an interesting one, Steve, because I think you'll always want to try and improve and try and get yourself to the next level. And that's what Southampton will try and do, I believe, it in the market. You have to look at, will there be any replacements? What players are going to leave in the summer? What players is Southampton not going to keep on? Is there going to be any sales from clubs coming in and trying to take the better Southampton players? Can Southampton hold on to those players? I think there'll be a lot of question marks over that. But personally, I think it's trying to find what was missing in the moments where Southampton could have moved to the next level, could have got into that top 10, could have won games that maybe we'd expected, or when you're having them tough periods of the season when you're not picking up consistent wins or not getting consistent points. Southampton missing? Was it more goals to try and win games, or was it tighter at the back defensively? So I think I think one thing that's maybe missing is that extra little bit of pace in the team. I think some wide players. I think you've got Nathan Teller, still a young player coming through, still developing, has had his injury problems, not really been able to get a consistent run, whether that's form, injuries, or the manager not wanting to pick him yet because it's part of his development. Nathan Redmond, again, has been in and out, not quite worked in terms of Theo Walcott. Gineppo has kind of been in and out. We're still kind of wait for him to burst on the scene and kind of use all the ability that we see in flashes. So I think maybe that extra bit of pace in the wide areas, whether it's a narrow number 10 or someone that's an out-and-out winger, whether it's Southampton changing that shape and playing on the counter-attack and being able to sit a little bit deeper and having that person who can really, really run with the ball. But also, I think, will Brozier stay? If Brozier doesn't stay, will Shane Long continue at the club? I think he should. I think he's earned the chance to get a new contract. I think he's so valuable around the club as well in terms of the dressing room, helping the younger players. But there's no hiding away from it. I think Southampton needs some more goals, really. So not really replace Danny Ings. Could Adam Armstrong do that? I believe he can. I think he has the ability to do that. Whether the manager quite trusts him yet to give him an extended run in the team to be able to get those goals. So I think for me, it will be some extra pace in the team. And like every team, looking for that goal scorer that can guarantee you 15 plus goals. And I think if they can, and if that had been there this season, I think Southampton would be in the top 10 and pushing even higher. So that would be the areas that I would be looking at. But they're the areas that are always so difficult and cost them most money and what every club is looking for. So it's very, very difficult.
Adam, let's get your thoughts on this then. What objectives do you think Southampton should be going for in the transfer window?
I feel like they need to add some quality. I know there's been a lot of talk about the depth of the squad, and I understand why people are talking about the depth of the squad. But the truth is that there is some depth there, but the depth is not seemingly trusted by the manager because, as Dean said, when you look at positions where you would perhaps look to strengthen, you go, we've got Redmond, you've got Gineppo, you've got Walcott. So Saints have invested in these areas. They've got players in these areas, but the manager, it doesn't seem sold on them. The same as Dean pointed out there with Adam Armstrong, kind of hasn't had that consistent run of games that suggests that Ralph is kind of dead set on him. We're seeing the sort of similar situation with the centre halves as well. The only kind of area that feels really settled is kind of when they play the two in midfield, Romeo and Ward-Prowse. That's the one area of the pitch where you think you kind of know what's going to happen. And Saints need some more quality. I think it's not easy to do, and I appreciate that. But while I think their recruitment policy is admirable, I like the philosophy of, let's try and get in these young players early in their careers. Let's try and give them a pathway. Actually, you do need to balance that with some experience and some quality. And I think that maybe Saints losing experienced players over the summer last year, Bertrand, Vestergaard, Ings, etc., that's hurt them this year. No matter what you think about those players and where they've gone on to and what they're doing this season, it's hurt Saints not having that level of experience and quality in the team and replacing them with kind of younger players. And that's led to a lot more inconsistency, I think. And that's what we've seen this season. So to be honest, it's not an easy solution. And if Brozier goes as well, it gets so much harder. But I would rather see Saints concentrate on getting 2 or 3 really high quality players that are the types that are going to come straight into the first team, have a little bit more experience than what they've been recruiting lately, and can lift the whole team rather than just kind of getting more players, maybe going for 4 or 5 players across a variety of positions that then potentially end up not playing again. Because I just think you're just going to get caught in that cycle. And when Saints really collapsed and went down, they had a massive squad, but it was a massive squad full of what the managers felt were dead wood, and they need to go careful they don't end up overloading themselves by having a big wage bill because they've got a lot of players, but players that the manager just won't pick. So I'd rather see them concentrate on less players but quality.
Yeah, it certainly will be an interesting summer ahead. Well, back to today's game. It was a fairly even contest when both sides met at St Mary's earlier in this season. Dean, what were your reflections from that game?
Well, a good game. It was a good game, entertaining game. Like you say, Steve, a 2-2 draw. I think if we reflect on it, Southampton had the much better of the first half. Started very, very well. Got an early goal from Bednar, another set piece that we've seen a lot of variety from this season, which has been a big improvement. And then Leicester coming back into the game, an equaliser from Johnny Evans against the run of play. Probably didn't deserve to get themselves back into the game. But Southampton played with that high energy against Leicester. Pressed them really, really well in that game that I remember. Didn't allow Leicester to settle. Got ahead again through Shay Adams. Really good cross from Nathan Redmond. And then it was the timing of the goals, really. There was opportunities for Southampton to extend that lead in the first half and didn't quite take those opportunities where I think Leicester were there for the taking. There was a little bit of magic in the second half from James Maddison, who has that ability. He has that real raw magic that he can create, as we see from his goal. And it was a timing of a goal. I think that was just after it was the beginning of the second half. And Southampton had the tendency to start slow in that period in games. A brilliant save from Alex McCarthy as well. And then Jamie Vardy, you expect him to score from there, and he doesn't. So I think it was a fair result, but an entertaining game with lots of opportunities. But I think it's another potential game this season that Southampton will look at and think, we could have won. We've dropped 2 points there, and where would we be in the league if there's probably 4 or 5 games this season we could look at with a similar situations that could end up being not 8, 10, 12 more points for Southampton, and that would have taken them into the top 10. And I think that was an example against Leicester, but a good game. It was a really, really good game. I'm hoping for more of the same today.
Absolutely. Well, that brings us nicely on to our team news. We can now reveal the starting 11 to take on Leicester. 3 changes today. Romeo, Stuart Armstrong and Adam Armstrong in for Diallo, Teller and Brozier. So let's just run through that starting 11 in full then. In goal, it's Alex McCarthy. A back 4 of Carl Walker-Peters, Lianco, Jack Stevens and Mohamed Salisu. Then it's our captain, James Ward-Prowse and Oriol Romeo in the midfield. And the front 4, Stuart Armstrong, Moy Elianusi, Nathan Redmond and Adam Armstrong. The Southampton substitutes are as follows then: Willie Caballero, Jan Bednarek, Jan Valery, Ibrahima Diallo, Will Smallbone, Musa Gineppo, Theo Walcott, Shay Adams and Shane Long. So Adam, let's come to you for your thoughts on this. I know a couple of players starting today that you were hoping would. What do you make of this lineup?
Yeah, I think it's a good lineup, Kenzie. I think it looks strong to me. I probably, as I said, would have probably liked to have seen Che playing as well, but actually I'm glad that Oriol's back in the team. I think Oriol and Prowse just, to me, we spoke about it a minute ago, but they are the bedrock of the team. I think you've just got to get them on the pitch all the time that you can get out of them. You get out of them, frankly, because they give the platform for the team to perform. It could well be that Ralph is going back to the 4 today. And I also think getting Stuart Armstrong in, again, I am surprised, genuinely surprised that he hasn't been the first name on the team sheet all the time, just because of the quality he brings and the balance that he brings to the team as well. And I think that's really important. I know I've likened him before to when you look back at the Koeman era and you look back at Stephen Davis and the role that he played in that Koeman team. And I think you need that player that gives you a certain amount of balance between defence and attack. And I think that Stu Armstrong is the key man for Saints in doing that in this squad. So I'm glad to see him back in the team. But I think it's a decent pick from Ralph. It looks like a strong team. It looks like he is going out for the win rather than trying to experiment, and I think that's the right thing to do.
Absolutely. Well, Dean, let's come to you for your thoughts. I know you're a big fan of Adam Armstrong. Great to see him starting today, and as Adam said, a strong starting lineup to take on Leicester.
Yeah, strong and more experienced team, which Adam has touched on as well, which I think can help the group, help the players. Be interesting to see whether Nathan Redmond plays off Adam Armstrong or he plays wide, and Elianusi can potentially play centrally, or even Adam Armstrong plays centrally. And like you say, Stuart Armstrong coming back into the team. I agree with Adam. You know, he is probably one of Southampton's better players when he's on form and playing, and he gets better and better with a consistent run in the team. And I think Stuart is even better centrally. You know, if there's a way of getting him in the future centrally, I think he can dictate games. And you look at James Ward-Prowse, or Romeo and Stuart Armstrong as a central 3. There's not many better within the league. And I think that could potentially work. But Ora Romeo coming back into the team is a real plus, because he really dictates the game and controls the game in the central midfield. And he improves the influence James Ward-Prowse can have on the game as well, because he just gives them that foundation in the middle of the pitch. And that will be very, very important today against Leicester as well. So a strong team. Salisu playing at left back, very, very capable. Will we see him flying down the wing? I'm not too sure. He may just be in more of a supportive role. But a good team and a positive team that's got lots of variety in it. Defensively can be strong, but also create opportunities to get those goals for Southampton today.
Absolutely. Well, let's hear from the fans then, shall we? See how they're feeling ahead of kick-off at 4 o'clock. One of our lovely colleagues who is away today, Callum Cashew, getting in touch. He says he's watching from Milton Keynes. Come on, you Reds. Lakai Tizard also commenting, come on, you Reds. Great to hear from you. Sabir Ali is going for a 3-2 Saints win today. Samantha Bricknell also getting in touch. Let's go out with a win. Vishnal is opting for a 2-1 Saints win, and he thinks it will be Shane Long with the winner, and a little goat emoji as well. And Evan getting in touch. Hello, Kenzie. I reckon Southampton to beat Leicester 4-2. Late winner, James Ward-Prowse. Free kick straight in 90th minute. Come on, you Saints. Oh,
We'd love to see that, wouldn't we?
That would be scenes, yeah.
Well, Adam, you did mention a few moments ago about how Southampton had lost experienced players last summer. Well, two of those, in the form of Yannick Vestergaard and Ryan Bertram, went to Leicester. And it's fair to say they've probably not had the season they'd hoped to have had.
No, I think that's very safe to say. I mean, they've played a handful of games between them, and that's obviously not what they would have intended. I think it's two slightly different situations when you look at the two of them. Obviously, they would have both hoped and expected to have played more. But for Ryan, I think his time at Saints had naturally come to an end. He was getting one kind of last move for a couple of year contract, probably the very back end of his career now, you would assume. And he went to Leicester. Whether he realistically went thinking he was going to play every week, not so sure. I'm sure he would have thought he was going to play more than he has. But I'm not sure he was going thinking necessarily this was a great step to be the number one left back at Leicester. It was be part of a squad at Leicester, I think, and enjoy the last couple of years of his career at another good club. So maybe slightly less concerning for Ryan, but for Yannick, probably more concerning. Still kind of age-wise in the peak of his career to suddenly leave Saints where you're playing pretty much every week to go to Leicester and then basically not play after the first month or two. He was obviously a bit shaky, and the manager appears to have completely lost confidence in him. And where that leaves him, I don't know really. I'm presumably looking for another move this summer, you would think, which is not really where you want to be. I mean, he's kind of lost a year of his career in his prime, and that's not great really. And the sad thing is we've seen this multiple times with players that have left Saints, in that kind of you feel that both they and Saints have ended up suffering a little bit, because I'm sure were Ryan and Yannick available this year, Saints would have been a bit better this year. I mean, you can talk about Danny Ings as well. Danny's at least gone and scored a few goals, even if he hasn't had probably quite the season he wanted. But yes, it's kind of feels like moves, particularly Yannick's, that just hasn't worked out very well for anybody. And I genuinely think he finds himself trying to find another club again this summer, which for him is pretty depressing, I'd imagine.
Kind of Leicester this season.
Well, inconsistent they've been, Kenzie, to be honest. I think it's difficult for them. There's an expectation at the football club now to achieve things after 2 fifth-place finishes and just missing out on the Champions League, winning the FA Cup. I think Europe has been a journey for them and a bit of a distraction in terms of their league form. But it's something that I know they wanted to really progress in and do well in, and one of the favourites for the competition, and that didn't quite happen. Injuries defensively has really, really affected them. And Adam's just touching that. It makes it even worse, I suppose, for Vestergaard that he's not even been able to get in when Southampton have Leicester have really, really struggled this year. Fofana being out has been a big miss. Tielemans has not quite hit the heights that you'd expect, because he is a quality player, quality midfield player. And his form has been a bit in and out. Jamie Vardy having a few injuries, still scoring goals, but missing parts of the season. But they're still done okay. I think they're sitting 9th in the league. And that's, I think they can finish 8th potentially if they win the game today and Wolves don't win. So that's kind of where Leicester are at. It's a difficult league, the Premier League. They've not invested huge amounts of money. The recruitment has not quite worked out in terms of Patson Daka yet. I think will be a good player for them. Sumari coming into the midfield again will be a good player with years to come. But it's not quite worked for them this year. So inconsistency has been their problem. They've not been able to get a really good run of results together to move themselves up the league, and they've just been chasing really. So, but they're still a quality team with top class players.
Well, now seems like a good time to have a look at some superb strikes that Saints have scored this season. So we want to get both of your views on your goal of the season. Now, Prowsey won the official club award for goal of the season, but we want to know who you've picked. Adam, who would you say has scored the goal of the season this year?
Well, Steve, it's a tough pick because there's some good ones, and obviously Prowsey has excelled himself. But I felt like I wanted to kind of steer away from the obvious a little in the end, and so I've gone for Shay Adams against Watford. It was just a fantastic goal from him. Amazing control in the area. Just gets himself that little yard of space, opens his body, and just with almost no backlift whatsoever, somehow pings the ball across goal and into the opposite top corner. Technique-wise, it's a pretty remarkable finish, and it's so typical. I know we've talked about it before on the show down the season, but it's one of those that you kind of almost expect Shay to get goals like that somehow, because the ones where he doesn't seem to have very long to think about it and he relies on instinct, reaction, and talent, no problem. They just seem to fly into the top corner like that. But it's the other ones where he's kind of one-on-one and things like that. He's got a little bit more time where he struggles. But I just felt like that was an amazing goal. And I've always liked the goal of the season that's got that little bit more technique to it, because you quite often find it's, people who've just put their foot through the ball and it's going in the top corner from 45 yards, and with Prowsey, you make the exception because you know that there's a great deal of skill that's gone on, but quite often it'll be like the classic Cuco Martina goal, where the guys just run up and kick the ball literally as hard as he can and it's whizzed in, and you think, well, fair play, it's a great goal, but probably a little bit of a fluke. So, but I think that one from Shay is just great technique.
Yeah, fantastic goal for Shay. As you say, great technique. I think the kids call it limbs these days. It was always techers in my day, or sort of skill.
Down with the kids.
That's it. I know my lingo.
I'm definitely not one of the kids anymore, Steve, so I don't know about that.
Dean, what about yourself? I will be very surprised if you haven't chosen Prowsey, considering how many he's got this season.
Well, you're right, Steve. I have gone for the obvious one. I've gone for the strike from 40 yards. Look, James Ward-Prowse has scored some brilliant goals this season, but his goal against Wolves, in my opinion, was spectacular because it's so different and it's so special. From the distance he scored from the change of technique where he's hit through the ball and used more power than placement. The movement on the ball is just a fantastic technique, and he means it as well. I think that's why I think it's my goal of the season, because he is aiming for that spot, and he would have practiced that in training. Why he chose to do it in that game and in that moment, or save it for then, I'm not sure. But it's a brilliant goal, and he scored some great free kicks this season, and we've talked about James all season. I mean, what a player he is, what a season he's had. But that was a really, really special goal, and I'm sure we'll see it again. I'm sure he'll try it again. But it was a brilliant goal, really, really was. And I've tried that, attempt that a few times against my son in the garden, and it hasn't quite worked like that. I must admit, I've lost a few balls, but no, it's a brilliant technique, and that would be my goal of the season.
I bet your neighbour's well angry just having to go and knock on. Excuse me, can I have the ball back, please?
Oh, two great goals there. And we are going to keep this period of reflection going by looking at Southampton's season as a whole. I mean, Adam, it's been kind of a cocktail of good times, bad times, bit of a roller coaster. How would you assess this campaign?
I think you've summed it up perfectly, to be honest, Kenty. It's been an absolute roller coaster. But I think on a serious note, that is the problem that Saints have had under Ralph, is that they've had periods of highs and periods of lows too often. And that's the issue they've got when you look at Ralph's time at Saints. They have these little runs where you think they can beat anybody, and they kind of just put together an amazing string of results. And then they seem to forget how to win, and they just go for just sort of limp around for ages, unable to barely get a point on the board. And it is these highs and lows. It's these great performances and amazing results against some of the big teams. And then 9-0 defeats or, just terrible runs of form. And I think that's the thing for me with Saints is that it's kind of, I'm sensing the fans have got past the point that they're enjoying the unpredictability of Saints, and actually they would like a little bit more predictability now. And I think the truth is that's where Saints have got to get to if they're going to make progress. Now, I accept that there is an argument that maybe actually with the quality of squad they've got, they're landing in kind of the right place. They're not too far off. They're probably a little shy. They've probably underperformed a little to be on 40 points at this stage of the season. But probably a couple of more wins in there. They probably are around where the quality of their squad would put them in the Premier League when you look at it. But they've got to get more consistent if what they want to do is make more progress than that. Whether that's an improvement in the squad, I'm sure that would obviously help them massively. But Ralph's just got to find a way, I think, to try and even out their season a little bit, so they're not having these crazy spells of amazing form followed by absolutely appalling form. So I think if you're going to look at it statistically, you look at this season and you say, you've got to be honest and say it's average. They've got 3 points less than they had last year at the end of the season. Obviously, we don't know what's going to happen today. They could finish on the same points, or they're going to finish on less points. That's not really what we were hoping for or really expecting this season. And it is, when you look at it, it is those really terrible runs that they've had that have dragged them down and actually stopped them from doing it. And in football, there's this constant demand for progress. Sometimes you have to step back from that and say, you know what, if that's the quality of your squad, then what do you expect? And I think, I mean, to be clear, I still support Ralph. I'd like to see Ralph here next season. I think if they have a good summer transfer window, there's still exciting times to come under him. But he's kind of, I think next season is big. He has to start well and more consistently next season, or I think he's going to come under an awful lot of pressure early on next year. So for me, that's it. It's been overall average because it's been inconsistent.
Okay, well, kickoff is fast approaching in the Midlands, so it's time to get your final thoughts and score predictions, although I'm not sure there's much to play for in that league table either. Dean, let's come to you first.
I think this could be a really entertaining game today. Last game of the season, both teams can play with that freedom without the pressure of needing a result. We've seen Southampton's team selection. There's some creativity for Southampton to go out with a strong finish. So I think this will be a good game to watch today. And I'm going to go for a 2-1 Southampton win today away at Leicester.
Adam, what are your thoughts then? Dean said earlier Leicester have the opportunity to potentially move into 8th. How are you feeling ahead of kickoff?
Well, despite Steve's jibe, I am going to approach it like Ralph. I'm not taking my foot off the gas just because there's nothing to play for. I will. I think it's going to be. I actually think it could be a good game. I'd like to see, as Dean has said, like Saints back to their kind of high pressing, high tempo selves, giving it a good go for one last game. And I think if they do that, they've got a chance against Leicester. They have been very inconsistent as well. They are at home, but you know what? I'm going to end the season with a bit of optimism. I think I'm going to go for a 1-1 draw.
Okay, fantastic stuff. Well, about 45 minutes to go until kick-off at the King Power for Southampton's final game of the season. Dean and Adam, thank you so much for joining us on Saints Live. As we've said, not much to play for, but I'm sure Ralph and his men will be hoping for a positive end to the campaign. Make sure to join us all again on the final whistle after the match, where we'll be discussing all the analysis and reaction. So do enjoy the game, and we'll see you then.
Bye for now.